AI never sleeps, and this week has been absolutely insane. We have a new real-time image generator. This AI can change the lighting of a photo. Like literally, you can adjust all the lights in the photo. We have a new 3D model generator which is super accurate. This is the AI music tool you've been waiting for. It can generate stems based on a reference track which you can then layer and mix together afterwards in a DAW. We have a free and open source deep research agent. Apparently China is planning a robot fight tournament this month. We have some new updates from OpenAI including a new GPT and a lot more, so let's jump right in. First up, we have a really cool 3D model generator. It's called Step 1x3D, and this can create 3D objects including their textures just from a reference image. So here are some examples. Let's say you upload this image of a dragon. Not only does it create just the overall model and shape of the dragon, as you can see over here, but it also creates the texture of the dragon, like this. Or here's an example of a dog, and again, not only does it create just the model and shape, but it also adds the texture of the dog. Here's a more challenging example of this mask with quite intricate details, but it's able to turn this into a 3D object that looks pretty accurate. And then here's an example of this handbag, and again, this looks really accurate and realistic. It even has some leather-like texture like the original image. And then here's another complex image of this medical equipment, I assume, and again, it's able to create the 3D model really accurately. It also has a setting for you to adjust the symmetry of the object. So for example, for this input image, you can see that only one wing is visible. So we're not sure actually if it only has one wing or if it has another wing here, but it's just not visible. So if you increase the symmetry slider, note that it adds 2 wings to this creature so that it's symmetrical. If you make it asymmetric, then notice that it only has 1 wing for this creature. So depending on, how symmetric you want your object to be, this is a really useful slider. It also has a slider for you to control the sharpness or the smoothness of the object's geometry. So for example, let's say we input this reference photo. Notice that the edges of this head are pretty sharp. So if you increase the sharpness, then indeed, the back of its head is more jagged and sharp. Whereas if you increase the smoothness of this, then this head looks a lot smoother. So depending on what your object is, this is also a really handy feature. Now, if you compare this with other 3D model generators, many of which I featured on my channel before, such as Hunyuan 3D, and Trellis and Trippo, notice that this new one, Step 1x3D, is actually pretty good. It's among the best out there in terms of actually following your reference image. Now, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've released a free Hugging Face demo for you to try this out online. So let's click into that, and it's pretty straightforward to use. Here is where you would upload a reference image. Here is the guidance scale, so this basically determines how literally you want the AI to follow your image. A higher value would mean it would be more accurate, a lower value means it can be more creative, and then inference steps is like how many iterations you want the AI to go through before outputting your 3D model. In general, more inference steps means better quality, but at a certain point you're going to get diminishing returns. So it seems like the sweet spot for this tool is 50 inference steps, so we'll just leave it at the default. And then the max face number is like what's the maximum number of faces you want the object to have. So for a really complex object, you would probably bump this up, but I think 400,000 is enough. And then these features we've gone over before. You can either set this to symmetric or asymmetric, and then for the edges, you can set this to sharp, normal, or smooth. So I'm going to upload this image of a motorcycle. I'm going to leave all the settings the same and then click Start. Alright, here's what we get. So here is the model with the texture, and look how beautiful and accurate this is. And then here is the 3D model without the texture. Very nice. Now, in addition to the Hugging Face demo, they've already released the models on Hugging Face. Plus, if you click on this GitHub repo, it contains all the instructions on how to download this and run it locally on your computer. All the links are up here, so if you're interested, I'll link to this main page in the description below for you to read further. In other news, Bytedance just released Seed1.5-VL. This is an open source vision language model. In other words, it's an AI that can understand both images and text, and it can do pretty complex visual reasoning. Here are some examples. If you upload this photo and ask it where is it, it was able to correctly identify that this is Lombard Street in SF, California. Or if you upload this really long receipt from a restaurant, and ask it to extract the dish names, quantities, and their prices into a markdown table, this is indeed what you get, and the prices are actually accurate. Here's an even trickier image. If you ask how many cats are there in the image, it's gonna say there are 2 cats in the image. But wait a minute, I only see 1 cat with its shadow. And then it says in the image there are actually 2 cats, not a cat and its shadow. The other is a solid black cat stretched out on the floor. The black shape is a real cat, not a shadow. It's also great with object detection and counting. So here, if we have a box of strawberries, and we ask it to please detect all the strawberries using a box outline format, here is what we get, and it indeed draws an outline around each strawberry it sees in the image. Or here's another crazy example. If you ask it to highlight the cherry tomatoes in the picture, this is what you get. Or here, if you ask it to point out all the birds using this point format, that is indeed what it does, and it correctly points out all the birds in this photo. Here's another challenging task. There are several points with different colors in the image. Please sort the object represented by these points in a close to far order and give their name. And it proceeds to do that very accurately. So we have point 2, which is yellow, which is the keyboard, and then point 4, which is red, which is the mouse. And then we have the blue point, which is earbuds over here, and then the green points, which is the yellow container. It's also pretty good at solving visual puzzles. So let's say you have this sequence over here and you ask it what this missing piece should be. The answer is basically an addition of these 2 images, so it should be number 7. And after some thinking, it indeed answers number 7. Now, because its visual analysis capabilities are so good, you can also use this as an AI agent to help you navigate different windows on your computer and click and move things. So for example, here the user is creating this slideshow. I found that the video being played has a good soundtrack. Please extract the audio to planet.wave and use it as background music for the slideshow. And so it proceeds to open up the terminal to extract the audio from the video, and then it's now inserting planet.wave into the slideshow. The crazy thing is, this model achieves state-of-the-art performance on a ton of visual reasoning tasks. So you can see Seed1.5-VL, the thinking version over here, and the numbers that are in bold signify that it's the best performer out of all these models. So you can see that for some benchmarks like VLM are blind and then zero bench and then Visu Logic, as well as real world QA, simple VQA, MM star, etc., it even beats Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro and OpenAI's O1, which is remarkable. What's even more impressive is that this is pretty small compared to the other leading models. So here it says it uses a 532 million parameter vision encoder and an only 20 billion parameter mixture of experts model. But it still achieves really good performance, even better than some of the leading models out there. The nice thing is they've released everything already. So at the top is a link to their GitHub repo, which contains all the instructions on how and where to download this. Notice this is under the Apache 2 license, which has very minimal restrictions. Plus, if you want to use this online, they have a free Hugging Face space for you to try this out. So it's pretty simple to use. You can basically chat with it like a chatbot, so you can enter your prompt here. You can upload anything from images to videos and then click send. Or they also have this online tab where you can open your webcam and talk to it while it analyzes your video. Let's just go with the offline version. And then I'm going to upload this photo and get it to point out all the hats on the people's heads in the image. Let's click run and see what that gives us. So because we've turned on deep thinking, you can see its thinking process over here as it analyzes the image and tries to map out all the points of the hats in the image. All right, and then afterwards, you can see that it has indeed pointed out all the hats in the image. These 2 kids are not wearing hats, so there are no dots on their heads. Super impressive. Anyways, the links are up here, so I'll link to this main page in the description below for you to read further. Next up, Stability AI. This is the team behind Stable Diffusion. They've released a new super tiny, super efficient audio generator called Stable Audio Open Small. Like the name implies, this can generate audio like music or sound effects just from a text prompt. So here it says it can generate around 12 seconds of audio in only 7 seconds on a mobile phone, making it one of the fastest text-to-audio models out there. This is super efficient and can run on most smartphones without needing any special hardware. We'll talk more about that in a second, but first, here are some examples. So here, if the prompt is Latin funk drum set, 115 BPM, stereo, here is what we get. And you can hear that this is stereo. There is some width and 3D to it. Here's another sample with the same prompt. Very nice. Now here's another example where the prompt is sports car passing by. Here's the first sample. Again, super realistic, and this is also stereo. Especially if you're wearing headphones, you should hear that the sound is coming from the left and then ending at the right, as if the car was driving from the left to the right. Here's another sample with the same prompt. Very nice. Now instead of car sounds, here the prompt is fire crackling. Let's hear what this sounds like. And then here's another sample with the same prompt. Not bad. This suddenly makes me want to go camping and make some s'mores. Here the prompt is 80 BPM industrial ambient loop. Let's hear what this sounds like. And then here's another sample with the same prompt. By the way, another really impressive thing is I actually used a metronome to check this, and both these samples are indeed 80 beats per minute. None of the other music generators out there could actually get the BPM correct, even if you specify it in the prompt. But this actually follows the BPM that you specified. You can even transfer the style of a reference clip onto your generation. So here are some examples of that. Let's say we have this reference audio of a Latin funk drum set at 115 BPM. So we can take the overall beat and groove of this song, but instead if we prompt it with E minor syncopated guitar, let's hear what this sounds like. And then here, if the prompt is light Latin percussion ping pong delay wide stereo effect, this is what we get. You can hear that it does take the same vibe and groove from the original reference audio, but instead it turns this into light Latin percussion with this ping pong and delay effect. So it seems to be really good at understanding these keywords in your prompt. Here's another example. Here is the reference audio. And then if we prompt it with bright Montuno horn solo, here's what we get. Some pretty nice stereo effect going on there as well. And then here, if we have a bright slap funk bass line, let's hear what that sounds like. Alright, well, this bass doesn't really sound that realistic. It sounds like a very synthetic MIDI track. Now here's the awesome thing you can do with audio to audio, and this is especially important because this AI can actually follow your BPM. You can now input a reference track of an existing song or an instrumental stem and get it to generate a new stem that fits the song. For example, you can just have a drum beat and then you can create a bass line on top of that, and then you can create the rhythm guitar on top of that, etc., etc. So you can basically get this AI to generate all these stems and layer them together into a full composition. So here's an example where it just starts off with a reference drum beat, and this is sent to the AI to create another instrumental, which is layered on top of the drums. And then this is combined and sent to the AI again to generate another track, and so on and so forth. And eventually you get a ton of layered instruments for a full song. Let's hear what this sounds like. This is the feature that I think a lot of music composers are waiting for. An AI that can generate individual stems that are complementary to existing tracks, and then they can take these stems and mix and master them further in their DAW. Finally, a few more specs that are worth mentioning. This is optimized to run entirely on ARM CPUs. Not some bulky, expensive NVIDIA GPU. ARM CPUs are used in most smartphones. So this model is designed to be super lightweight and fast and usable on most smartphones. Notice that for the base model, it does use Stable Audio Open by Stability, and this is an audio generator that has existed for a while, but on top of it, it uses a special technique called Adversarial Relativistic Contrastive Post-training. And this basically makes the audio generation process faster and better. Anyways, the good news is everything is free and open source for you to use right now. They've released all the models on Hugging Face, plus if you click on this GitHub repo, it contains all the instructions on how to run this locally on your computer. All the links are up here, so I'll link to this main page in the description below for you to read further. Speaking of software tools, here's a really important one called DeleteMe, the sponsor of this video. Did you know that your personal information like your address, phone number, and even details about your family could be sold online by data brokers? These are basically companies that scrape and sell your personal data from social media and other records. They can sell your information to just about anyone, which opens the door to risks like stalking, phishing scams, and even harassment. Honestly, I didn't realize how bad it was until I looked into it myself. And that brings us to DeleteMe. This is a super easy way to secure your personal data online. DeleteMe scans hundreds of data broker sites, finds where your information is listed, and gets it removed for you. and they keep doing it regularly to make sure it stays removed. For example, here's my dashboard, and you can see that it has reviewed 125 listings, and it has found 12 data brokers with my info. They also gave me a really comprehensive report showing the number of removals in progress and the number of listings that they have cleaned. And they do this for all these data broker sites. If you want to take control of your privacy, I highly recommend DeleteMe. Simply click the link in the description below and get 20% off when you use my promo code AI Search at checkout. Protecting your information is one of the best investments you can make. Thanks again to DeleteMe for sponsoring this video. Last week, I featured a really powerful open source video generator called LTXV 13B. This is a great balance between quality and speed. This is one of the fastest open source video generators out there, and you can even run this on low VRAM. Well, this week it got even better. So they've just released a 13B Distilled model. This has huge improvements in generation speed without much sacrifice in quality. So all the videos I'm showing you right now were generated with the distilled version. You can now make videos in just 4 to 8 steps, which makes it way faster. Note that the full model required like 20 to 30 steps. Plus the VRAM requirements are also very low. Some users have reported to successfully run this on just 12 gigabytes of VRAM. And if you have lower than 12 gigabytes, you can also run this distilled FP8 version, which you can download on Hugging Face, or this GGUF version, which supports even lower VRAM. In fact, because this is so fast and efficient, they've also released a free Hugging Face space for you to try this out online. So it's pretty simple to use. Here's where you would upload an image if you want to do image to video, and then here's where you would enter the prompt. Here's the video duration. You can set this all the way up to 8.5 seconds. But just to show you a quick example, we're just going to do 2 seconds. And you would leave this setting on if you want to improve the texture and the quality of the video. So I'm going to upload this photo of a dude being chased by a giant spider, and I'm going to write a man with a terrified expression being chased by a giant spider. Let's click generate and see what that gives us. Now, to show you how fast this is, I'm not even going to pause the video. It's only going to take like under 20 seconds, so let's actually wait and see how fast this is. And here we go. That took like only 10 seconds, and here is our final video. I mean, this tool is blazing fast. Definitely try this out. Anyways, all the info and links are on their official GitHub repo, so I'll link to this in the description below. Also, if you're new to LTX video and you're not sure how to install this, see this video where I go over step by step how to install it and use it locally on your computer. Also this week, the one and only Tencent released an insane image generator. It's called Hunyuan Image 2.0, and here are some example images. Here's the crazy thing about it. It can generate high-resolution images in just milliseconds, making this pretty much a real-time image generator. Note that even for some of the commercial image generators out there, you need to wait at least 10 seconds or sometimes over a minute to generate an image. So this is a huge improvement in terms of speed. Now, in addition to just a standalone text-to-image generator, they also have a real-time canvas, which allows you to sketch or adjust your drawing, and you can immediately see the generated results in a side window. This allows you to iterate over your generation and basically have full control of what you want to generate, and it can do this all in real time. This is a really powerful tool. Now, they've just announced it this week, and to try it out, you do need to sign up with your email on their official website. And this is all in Chinese, but if you're using Google Chrome, you can just click on Translate to English. And then over here is where you can select real-time image generation. So if you click try it out now, notice that you can't use it right now. For most people, you're going to see this pop up where it asks you to apply for their waitlist. So simply click apply here, and then you just have to wait a bit for them to email you. But anyways, if you're interested in this real-time image generator, I'll link to this main page in the description below for you to read further. In the past few weeks, Google has been absolutely killing it in the AI space. This week, they've released an autonomous system called Alpha Evolve, which can make scientific breakthroughs and discoveries all by itself. And this is an endless loop where the system can get better and better over time. Now, I already did a full video explaining Alpha Evolve, so I'm not going to repeat too much here. I just posted it yesterday, so check this video out if you haven't already. But in addition to Alpha Evolve, they've also released this really cool tool called Lightlab. This can accurately change the lighting in a picture. It can make lights dimmer or brighter, change their color, and even add new lights to the scene. Here are some examples. So here's the before, and here's the after. You can even specify the color of the lights. Here's another example. Here's the original image, and you can turn off the light like this. Or if we have an image like this, it knows to detect the light here, and you can turn it on like this. Get this, it can even create ambient light. So let's say you have this original image. Well, you can make light outside and get this, while still retaining the blue and the red indoor lights. How insane is that? Or if you have an image like this, you can also choose to turn this light on like this. And look how seamless and realistic this is. Here's another example. Instead of this side window light, you can completely remove any outdoor light and turn on this light, and you would get this. Or here's an example where we can choose to turn off this light like this. It even works with anime photos. Let's say we turn this into nighttime and we turn on this lamp. Voila! So here's how it works. You would upload a photo and the AI will automatically detect the lights in the photo. And for each light, you can adjust the brightness of it using sliders. So here's one example. Let's say we adjust the brightness of this. Notice that it only turns on this light and everything looks super realistic, including the shadows. Let's turn this light back off and then let's turn on this light. And again, everything looks super realistic. And if we turn on both lights, this is what you get. Or here's another example. Let me adjust this light over here first. Let me turn this a bit dimmer. And it looks like we have a lamp here, so let's turn this light on. And then we also have light from the outdoors. Let's turn this into nighttime. And would you look at that? It even has reflections from the light up here. This is insanely realistic. Here's another example where you can just add light in any position you want. So let's say you want to add a light source over here. This is what you get. Or let's say you want to add a light source right over here. That is indeed what you get. This looks super creepy, by the way. Or if you add a light source here, this is what you get. You can also adjust the overall brightness like this. Very cool. And it even works with these Lego blocks. So you can choose to, for example, illuminate the sign over here, or also illuminate these lights on the street, plus illuminate the little lamp that we have over here. Or you can just adjust all the lights in the photo. So here's an example where we can just turn on all the street lamps of this image. This is a bit too bright, so let's make this a bit dimmer, like this. Very nice. Not only that, but you can also adjust the color of the light. So let's turn this light on first. Right now it's blue, but you can also adjust this to purple or pink like this. Here's another example where we can change the color of each individual light, as you can see here. So let me turn this back to yellow, and then let me change this one as well. And everything just looks so realistic. You can also control ambient light, so basically the light that comes through windows from the outside. This is really hard to control, and it's pretty much impossible to do this in Photoshop. But with this tool, with one drag of a slider, you can do something like this. How cool is that? Here's another example where you can choose to add a light source to any point in the photo. So if I add a light source here, this is what happens. Or if I add a light source here, notice that all the shadows are also aligned with the light source. And then here's another example. And then finally, we can also add a light source like this. Really quickly, here's how it works. So it would take your input image and it would run it through a segmentation map to basically detect and segment all the lights in the image. So the user can afterwards adjust the brightness or the color of each light. It also runs the image through a depth map to estimate the depth of the image. This is super important, especially if you want to change the angle of the lighting. You need to know how things are configured in the image to accurately depict any light reflections or shadows. And then afterwards, it runs it through this light-controlled diffusion model, which takes in all the settings that the user has specified to generate your final image. For now, they've only released a technical paper. I'm not sure if they are going to open source this, but if you're interested in reading further or checking out more examples, I'll link to this main page in the description below for you to read further. In humanoid robot news, apparently there is going to be a robot fighting tournament taking place in Hangzhou, China later this month. You can see this Unitree robot preparing to fight in this tournament. So here are the details we know so far. It looks like it's not going to be like different robot companies fighting each other. It's going to be completely Unitree, so there's going to be 4 teams, and each team will control a Unitree robot remotely in real time. Think of it as like controlling this robot with a video game controller, and you can get it to punch or kick or jump or do whatever. These robots are still pretty clumsy, but this can be a glimpse into the future where humans might be spectators of sport games and tournaments being played by robots. Let me know in the comments below, would this be something you would be interested in watching? Or would you rather watch humans play sports instead? A few weeks ago, I featured this tool called VACE by Alibaba. And this is the most powerful free and open source reference to video generator you can use right now. For example, you can replace existing characters in a video with a new reference character. Or you can add multiple reference images and characters together into one video. You can even transfer the motion of one video onto a new video. Here's another cool example. Now, I already covered this in a previous video, so I'm not going to repeat too much here, but this week they finally released the official non-preview versions of VACE, and this includes the 14 billion parameter model, which can generate videos of up to 1280 by 720 resolution. And best of all, both these models are under the Apache 2 license, which has very minimal restrictions, and you can pretty much do whatever you want with it, including commercial usage. And like I said, this is the best quality open source reference to video generator you can use right now. It's so flexible, and with this you can get consistent characters, and you can kind of control the movement of any character in your videos. Now, that being said, this official raw version does require like 80 gigabytes of VRAM, which I'm sure most of you do not have. However, because this is open source, and the open source community moves hella fast, we already have a quantized version of this by Quantstack, and it looks like this can be run on as low as 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which is crazy. Now, of course, with that much quantization or compression, you're going to get lower quality. So I would say it's only decent if you use this with like 12 or 16 gigabytes. But nevertheless, note that you can already use VACE 14 billion parameters, which generates the highest resolution of video with really low VRAM. Anyways, I'll link to this quantized model in the description below, as well as this official VACE page, which contains a GitHub repo showing you how to download and run this locally on your computer. By the way, let me know in the comments below if you want me to do a full installation tutorial on this. This is a super powerful tool, and if there's enough interest, I might do it next week. Next up, we have yet another free and open source image generator. It's called Blip3o, and you would never have guessed the company behind this. Pause this video if you want to take a guess. Anyways, this was made by Salesforce, out of all companies. You know, it really boggles my mind why Salesforce made an image generator out of all things. You would expect them to make, I don't know, some AI-powered CRM or sales software or something like that. Anyways, this is a fully open source family of multimodal models designed for both image understanding and generation. That means you can chat with it like a chatbot. You can ask it to analyze images, and you can get it to generate images or edit images. So they've released 2 models. One is 4 billion parameters and one is 8 billion parameters. So this one, of course, is better quality. This one has faster generation times and can run on lower VRAM. Interestingly, this uses a combination of 2 different techniques. It uses autoregressive models, which is what the legendary GPT-4o image generator uses. But it also uses diffusion models, which is what powers Stable Diffusion and HyDream and Flux. So this is like a hybrid between these 2 systems. Now, they've released all the models already, plus this GitHub repo contains instructions on how to download and run this on your computer if you want. But in addition to that, they've also released a free online demo for you to try this out. So for example, let's try this. I'm going to upload this image, and then for the prompt, I'm going to write, why is this image funny? For the seed, this is basically the starting point of the image. So basically, if you have the same prompt and the same image, and you keep all the settings the same, and you have the same seed, it's going to give you the exact same image that you had before. If you give it a different seed, then it's going to give you a slightly different answer. And then for guidance scale, this is basically how literally you want the AI to follow or listen to your prompt. So let's click run and see what that gives us. Alright, so here's the answer. The image is humorous because it uses a meme format to make a comparison between the physical capabilities of humans in the past and today. The left side shows etc, etc. The right side shows etc, etc. This represents the modern convenience of food delivery services and the contrast between effort required for hunting in the past versus the ease of ordering food online today. The humor comes from the stark difference in the depiction of human abilities and attitudes towards over time, etc, etc. For the most part, this is correct. Here's another example. If I upload these two images of a raccoon and a red panda, and then I ask, are these two pictures showing the same kind of animal? Let's click run and see what that gives us. And here it says, no, these photos are not the same kind of animal. The one on the left is a raccoon. The one on the right is a red panda. Perfect. Now, like I said, you can also just get this to generate images. So for the prompt, if I write an amateur photograph of 6 people in their early 20s, dancing in a nightclub, direct flash, hard shadows overexposed, vintage instant camera feel, let's click run and see what that gives us. Alright, here's what we get, and notice that you can also set the number of image generations down here. Now there are a ton of flaws with this. For example, the hands and fingers look absolutely awful. The faces also look awful. There aren't just 6 people in this photo, so it's not actually that good. In fact, after playing around with this for a bit, it's clearly not as good as HiDream or Flux or even Stable Diffusion XL. It's just lacking in quality and understanding of human anatomy. However, this is completely free and open source, so you're free to fine-tune it and train it further or do whatever you want with it. So it's still worth a share. If you're interested in trying this out, I'll link to this GitHub repo in the description below. Also this week, OpenAI has rolled out their latest GPT 4.1 models in ChatGPT. So here it says GPT 4.1 is a specialized model that excels at coding tasks and instruction following. Because it's faster, it's a great alternative to O3 and O4 Mini for everyday coding. Here they say Plus, Pro, and Team users will be able to access 4.1 in the dropdown this week. Enterprise and education users will get access in the coming weeks. We're also introducing GPT 4.1 Mini, which will replace GPT 4.0 Mini in ChatGPT for all users. Now, if you're on the free plan and you click this dropdown, it's not clear, what version of ChatGPT this is, but it seems like this will be replaced by a slightly more performant version, GPT 4.1 Mini. Really quickly, here are some benchmarks for your reference. So here's a comparison of GPT 4.1 with the other leading AI models, and this is by Artificial Intelligence, which is an independent evaluator. So you can see GPT 4.1 is decent. It's better than GPT 4.0, but it's not even as good as DeepSeek version 3 or DeepSeek R1 or Gemini 2.5 Flash, which is like the smaller version of Gemini, or Qwen 3, which is completely free and open source, or Grok 3 Mini. So it's definitely not the best model out there. In terms of price, it is slightly more expensive than all the other models. So this isn't like a state-of-the-art model that's noticeably more performant than the other leading models we have right now. But note that if you are using ChatGPT on the free plan, you might get a slight bump in intelligence and performance because they are replacing the old GPT 4.0 Mini with this one. Now, in addition to rolling out GPT 4.1, OpenAI also released a new coding tool this week called Codex. Not to confuse this with another tool from OpenAI, which is also called Codex, which was released in 2021. And not to confuse that with Codex CLI, which is yet another similar tool that they released a few weeks ago. Not confusing at all. Anyways, think of this new Codex tool as basically a coding agent that can help you autonomously do a ton of coding tasks all at once, like writing code, fixing bugs, running tests, and explaining code bases. And specifically, this is powered by a new model called Codex 1, which is like a specialized version of their powerful O3 model. So here's a chart showing Codex 1 versus O3 High in terms of software engineering performance, and you can see that Codex 1 is just slightly more performant than O3. Note that all the base models like GPT or Gemini or Grok can of course code things already, but this is slightly different. This is an agent, so think of this as like a software engineer intern which you can just assign tasks to, and it'll keep doing the task autonomously until it's complete, even if it's very complex and requires multiple steps. For example, here's what the interface looks like. It's basically a chatbot, and you can prompt it to carry out a certain task. So for example, here the user writes, I want to keep this codebase maintainable and bug-free, read through the code and propose tasks that would help me with this goal. For each, explain why it's a good change to make and point to the existing code, etc., etc. So it's going through the user's codebase and identifying any issues and bugs, and it worked for 2 minutes and 58 seconds. And afterwards, it gave a list of things it has detected and also suggested next steps on how to fix the issue. So for example, we have avoid mutatable default arguments. Here is the suggested task. It has also identified some misspellings, so here's a suggested fix for that. Here's another thing it has identified, and here's the suggested fix for that. The nice thing is you can just step away and it'll continue doing the task. You can even assign other tasks for it to do simultaneously. So for example, you can see here, the AI is working on like 3 tasks at the same time, and the user is adding another task on top of that. So think of this as like a team of software engineering interns, which you can send out to do certain tasks. Now, in addition to Codex, which is their online platform, they've also released an open source version, which you can run locally on your computer called Codex CLI. This is basically a command line tool which you can run in your terminal. So here's an example of that in action. However, to use its AI capabilities, you still need to connect it to OpenAI's API, which you would need to pay for based on your usage. Anyways, if you're a developer and you're interested in learning more, I'll link to this Codex CLI page, as well as their main Codex release page in the description below. Next up, this is super exciting. We have a new free and open source version of Deep Research. This is by the legendary Bytedance, and it's called DeerFlow. It's basically a system of AI agents that can help you do research and other tasks autonomously. It can search for information, read articles, analyze data, write reports, even generate slides or podcasts for you. In fact, this is really similar to Manus or GenSpark, which I featured on my channel before, where you can get it to do a really complex and multi-step task, and in the end, it would compile a really comprehensive and thorough report for you. Here are some examples of this in action. If we get it to write a brief on the #1 trending repo on GitHub today, it's going to first come up with a research plan. It's going to identify the top repo, it's going to gather information, yada yada yada, and then afterwards, it generates this report about the top trending repo on GitHub. And then here's all the information, here are some images, and then here are some citations. Or here, if I ask it, how many times taller is the Eiffel Tower than the tallest building in the world? Well, this is also a multi-step process. It needs to find the height of the Eiffel Tower, and then needs to identify and find the height of the tallest building, and then it needs to compare the two. So it proceeds to carry out all these steps. It's calculating the height of the Eiffel Tower, it's then finding the tallest building in the world, and then finding the height of that, and then afterwards, here is our answer. Very nice. Note that OpenAI charges at least $20 a month for limited access to their deep research tool. Other deep research agents like Manus and GenSpark also cost roughly the same. So it's awesome that we now have this completely free and open source option, which is just as good, which you can run on your computer. So if you click on their GitHub repo, this contains all the instructions on how to download and use this locally on your computer. Notice that for search engines, if you need to get it to find data on the internet, you can choose from several, including DuckDuckGo and Arxiv for academic research. Plus, in terms of the AI models to use, you can basically use most of the AI models out there, including open source ones like Qwen or DeepSeek or Llama. You can also link this to the API of commercial models like OpenAI and Anthropic. Plus, you can also integrate MCPs with this, so you can connect to and work with data from other software platforms. Anyways, if you're interested, I'll link to this main page in the description below for you to read further. And that sums up all the highlights in AI this week. Let me know in the comments what you think of all of this. Which piece of news was your favorite, and which tool are you most looking forward to trying out? By the way, if you want to win the exact laptop that I personally use to run these AI tools, it's a Dell Precision 5690 with an RTX 5000 Ada. And I'm partnering with Dell Technologies to give away the same laptop to a lucky winner. I'll have a link for the giveaway in the description below. Terms and conditions apply.